half ago, and I was reminded how humble I need to be. The Washington Times Foundation sponsors an annual golf tournament. We had about 46 people out, and it focuses on the Asian press corps in Washington, which is quite significant, especially the Korean community. And a couple of our IAPP partners, Congressman Dan Burton and Congressman Todd Tiahrt, came out and played, and so it was good. It is really an honor to be here tonight. Thank you, Reverend Jackson, for your beautiful welcome and your hospitality, and Mrs. Jackson, and Reverend Hernandez, and all the friends here that many of us have crossed paths over the years. I would like to give a briefing for about 27 minutes, and Mark, if you could watch your watch and give me a signal. Right? I come from Irish background, and I have the gift of gab, and can, like any preacher, can sail off. But I'm going to keep it contained tonight, and I'm here to share with you the story, a narrative, which I would use, the key word is evidence. I see empirical, irrefutable evidence of God working in the world today in a way that goes beyond any way that we could define from past frameworks. And I see that happening now for 47 years through the essential leadership of the founders of this organization. I've had the honor and privilege of working with them. I consider them like my parents, my true parents. My mom and dad, born in Gary, Indiana, Irish Catholic family, also were very, they're in heaven now, but also were very supportive of Reverend Mrs. Moon. And so, I just came from Salt Lake, and I was mentioning to my new friend Mark Romney and the bishop. John Jackson asked me, he said, Tom, just talk about what inspires you. So, what inspires me is day to day, the way in which the Lord opens doors. I used to be a trainer with Franklin Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I loved Stephen Covey's work and once made a promise I wanted to bring him to the Washington Times, which we did for all day. We honored him in Capitol Hill. And when I learned his son, David, launched an international marketing firm, I wanted to meet him. So first thing I did Friday when I was out in Salt Lake is have dinner with David Covey, who's one of the younger sons of Stephen. We had a wonderful coming together because of some mutual contacts. But the reason this is interesting is that he has a footprint in 70-some countries with some of the top 20, 25 business-oriented training modalities for professionals, from sales to management to communications. And I'm interested in hooking up with that because of some new work we're doing in Korea and Japan and in Africa, which I'm going to show you. But we kind of, shook hands and made a deal. And I briefed him like I'm going to brief you tonight about the stuff we're doing. He said, this is incredible. What Mrs. Moon's doing is incredible. So that was one thing. And then the next day, the Washington Times sponsored a wonderful forum with Senator Orrin Hatch, who is retired from the U.S. Senate. And Senator Hatch has been a lifelong advocate of religious freedom and constitutionalism, originalism in the Constitution. And he had a forum out there in Salt Lake with the Hatch Center, and he invited not Chief Justice, but Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. You may have seen him on television. He wrote a book recently about, I think, could very well be the most important topic for society in America today, on civility, on how we can communicate even if we disagree, in a manner that respects the sacredness of one another or the dignity of one another. Anyway, he wrote a fantastic book. I really recommend you get it and read it, called A Republic If You Can Keep It, which is what Ben Franklin said after the Constitutional Convention when he was asked what kind of a country we're going to have. Well, he said a republic if you can keep it, because keeping America safe, alive, prosperous, and so it can move in the right direction totally depends on citizens who are educated and informed and engaged. And he did a wonderful job talking about civility he was appointed by President Trump to the Supreme Court, President Bush to the 10th Circuit Court. and his partner, who was appointed by President Obama, a woman who served on the panel of judges with him, had a tremendous relationship that demonstrated civility. And that it wasn't a lecture. It was the woman from Denver and that justice, along with Justice Gorsuch, on the stage having a conversation, reminiscing and all of that. It was filled with 900 wonderful students from Brigham Young University. You could hear a pin drop. And all they were talking about is this essence of American republic, constitutional fabric of civility, that we're all equal. We're made in the image of God. The Declaration spells that out. So that was fantastic. And the Washington Times was the sponsor of this event. So because of our sponsorship, Dr. Jenkins, my colleague, and Dr. Kim and others, you know what? We decided we were going to put some money, a little bit of money in this. So we made it available, Mark. So every one of those 900 students, law students from BYU and local officials and lots of folks from churches got a copy of this book.
Right.
And this was the program, and they had some wonderful people. But about 2 weeks ago, Senator Orrin Hatch wrote a beautiful op-ed in the Washington Times. A homework assignment tonight is going to be on the test next week. Is go online to WashingtonTimes.com, Google Orrin Hatch, and the word civility. Civility can restore our institutions. Probably not. It's probably never been a time as urgent as now, as we move into the end of 2019 into 2020. You know what I'm talking about. With the elections coming up, we as citizen leaders need to practice civility. And the lessons in this book and the lessons in your own scriptures and reading, it's so vital. It's so vital. So we're very proud of this. And that was something that really inspired me a lot. And then the week before, I was in Korea, South Korea, working with Dr. Moon, and was there for the Thanksgiving holidays. And what I'd like to do is paint a quick picture for you about some important events that are coming up that Ambassadors for Peace are at the core of. And it really hinges on an annual, what's called a World Summit. We've had a number of them over the past few years. Since Reverend Moon passed away, Dr. Hak-Ja Moon, our true mother, has taken the lead. She's, in my view, beyond like a providential Margaret Thatcher. Her capacity to assess very complex issues globally and then define and develop strategies to attack these problems from a faith-based perspective that involve every single faith orientation that's a long sentence here. The conclusion is, it is remarkable by any measure.
Yeah.
And I want to show you some evidence that I see that points to this, because where we're going from now till February 2020 is when a major event will happen in Korea, like we just did this last year, and it's going to be called World Summit 2020. We're working on it now. We're going to, as I mentioned to Reverend John, Dr. John Jackson, America will send about 500 people. 6 different channels, it's multi-sector. The interfaith religious side, the Parliamentarians for Peace, which, can you imagine, a network in over 90 countries of 5,000 incumbent parliamentarians that have signed on to a course of that's a very powerful network of righteousness and goodness and truth and beauty. And then there's a new effort going on to reach heads of state. There were about 40 former heads of state at the conference I'm going to show you last year. And we're looking at least that many and probably half as many current heads of state. A number of presidents from nations around the world have committed to this. And then we're launching 3 new channels, spheres. One is in the academic world. So we're looking for the prepared, righteous academics, professors and deans, scholars, who believe in the core values we share in this room, and who want to make a difference in the world beyond tenure and beyond their own career. And then we're doing the media. I've been asked to be responsible there. So we want to build a network. There'll be 500 journalists coming from all over the world. We're looking just for those journalists who are not there just to get their name out there. They're there with the calling of journalism, the true calling of journalism. Washington Times and our sister paper in Korea and Japan are organizing that. Now we've built this amazing network of people. We have conference calls every week of coordinators in each continent. Mamadou Gay Mamadou, Fox News sportscaster in South Africa. The guy's hot. He is amazing. He's famous. He covers soccer, not American football, but soccer, which is the real football outside of America. Go Dallas. I'm in Washington. He said I had 5 sons, and 2 of my sons were ardent Cowboys fans, and 3 were ardent Skins fans.
We love you, Tom.
So, where was I? So anyway, media people. We're going to be recruiting a network of folks that want to make a difference. And about 1.5 to 2 years from now, I predict it's going to end up being a network of several thousand journalists who share a common orientation for the betterment of society, that we connect with, and we share information and move the world. And then there's another group of business people, which is based on a new foundation. We had a gentleman that joined us just a couple of months ago. Jim Rogers is the Warren Buffett of Singapore. And Mr. Rogers is a major investor in Asia, American, lives in Singapore. And he's part of our team now. He's one of those people with a B, 0000. And then there's another one from India, a dear friend, Dr. B.K. Modi, who's also one of that club. And these men and women are determined to work together to do big things for the sake of goodness, not just the sake of profit. So, let's show you some quick things. I've already eaten about 13 minutes and 27 seconds. My brain works like that. I'm the chairman of the Washington Times. This is a special section we did. And I have PowerPoints and videos. I just want to show you an artifact, digital. And we're going to email this, John Jackson. Isaac is going to email you this publication and send it out to everybody in the room. So you can see what we're doing, see what Mrs. Moon is doing, and what our colleagues are doing. This is significant stuff. Now the core values, we call it the New Africa. Interdependence, mutual prosperity, universal values. Those are the pillar values of the Universal Peace Federation. Think about those. The orientation of all these 6 different professional spheres is around those common values. And in my study, they sync deeply with the U.S. Constitution and with the Declaration of Independence. They're universal in their sense, and they bring things down to, well, the first thing we did is we went to scroll down, and this is basically a 28-page special section that dealt with 3 big events. The first Africa Summit at the end of 2018 in Senegal, hosted by President Macky Sall himself. And it involved all 54 countries in Africa, 1,400 leaders, political, religious, women's groups, tribal groups, etc. Then we went to Zimbabwe, and I was involved in all of those sessions there. They did a big stadium event with some 60,000 people, blessing their marriages from all different denominations. And then to South Africa, to Cape Town, to another Africa Summit. And so this was published last year, and just scroll through it. Keep going, just scroll through. This is Cape Town here. Go on, scroll through. Keep going. And so I'm just going to go right through it, Alex. Here's stop. Mother Moon, beyond, it's like this genre of rhetoric or oratory or preaching that is rare. She is redefining life as I see it. And she named Africa, Heavenly Africa. The first will be last, the last will be first. She is touching and investing everywhere in Africa. It's amazing to watch, to see it. I've been privileged to be there numerous times. And Senegal was the starting point. We're going to go back to Senegal this year for a massive event. It's a 95% Muslim country, and tens of thousands of couples are coming out with the same sense of sacredness to marriage and dedicating themselves like that. It's incredible. Let's go down, scroll down, keep going. There's This is Macky Sall. I believe in this new Africa. He's coming to Korea in February. Keep going. This is Sheikh Mansour, one of the top leaders of the Muslim faith. Keep going. Just scroll down. Scroll down, scroll down. Look at that. Africa's future to serve humanity and amaze the world. I'm reading a book now by Harvard Business Review on Africa is the hottest place on the planet for investment. China knows it. China's big, deep, and aggressive. And there's other countries and other people moving in. And there's also, Mother Moon's point, though, is that the heart and motivation is to be to raise the continent of Africa. Let's go. Keep going all the way. She went to Goree Island, which is the island, this place right here. On Goree Island, scroll down just a bit. She did this incredible prayer, weeping, and it was a place where the slave trade, one of the points of departure, where there was an area that slaves were kept, men separate from women, from children, put on ships and never saw their homeland again. She went there about an hour and a half, an incredible prayer, an incredible liberation sense, and did that again in other places. Let's go. Scroll down. Keep going. Then we went to Zimbabwe. Tens of thousands attended a peace festival there. Just scroll down. Keep going, keep going, keep going. This is amazing. I just love her language. I grab these sentences and I keep them in my brain and I use them. It's simple. We must know and understand the creator of the universe, God. When you look at the political environment of our country or of what's going on around the world, and you wonder, do people really see that there is a creator and that we have to align and understand the creator of the universe? And if we don't, your capacity to understand how to solve problems is severely limited in my experience. I just love what she does here. She said the same thing in the U.S. Senate to about 80 members of Congress. That's why Senator Hatch was such a big fan of this. Let's go forward. She did a blessing prayer for Zimbabwe. Keep going, keep going. All the way, this is the president of Zimbabwe. Keep going. They consecrated their marriages there. Just flow right through it, Isaac. And then we went to South Africa, honoring the legacy of Nelson Mandela. Keep going. It was the grandson of Nelson Mandela. On here, look at this beautiful moment. We must know that God, our Creator, is our parent. That's kind of a revelation for a lot of people. And so keep going. It's kind of new wine into new wineskin. This is Chief Mandela Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela, and he was the co-host. Keep going, just fly through it. And there we had the tribal chiefs. Keep moving on, and just all the way down to the bottom. And then the Sunak Peace Prize, this was announced. These two individuals, this is the third time, every 2015, 17, and 19. These two individuals are from Africa. The gentleman on your right is Dr. Adesina, did his PhD at Purdue University. I'm a Hoosier, grew up in Gary, Indiana, where Michael Jackson was born. And, he went to Purdue. He is revolutionizing agriculture in Africa. And so we searched through like thousands of applicants, and he was one. The woman, Waris Diri, a very well-known fashion model from Somalia, was the first woman to speak out on female genital mutilation. And so she has a foundation now that helps so many thousands of young girls to recover. So every 2 years we find people like this, and $1 million grant was split so that both of those received that. And this was in Korea. It got all kinds of global news, and it was announced there. There'll be a similar prize coming up in this next one. Let's go to the next one. Keep going. And then there was an interfaith blessing ceremony. The gentleman in the center there, Prophet Kwadebi, I was in Johannesburg just several months ago, and he had about 80,000 people there gathered. An amazing man. The Zion Church of Christ, just amazing interdenominational, continental level work. And the South African broadcasting system put the whole thing on TV, the whole thing, like for 3 hours. It was amazing. Let's go, keep going. And that's basically looking ahead to Vision 2020. So let's pop that one off and come up with, I'm going to show you a few slides of the World Summit 2019. And then finish up here. This is a briefing of what happened in February of last year. And we're going to, I hope but just to paint the picture, and then we'll come to a conclusion of what can we do in Dallas, in your community, and in this great Republic of Texas. I got that message. I got the message. Go Dallas. So what can we do to grow? I'm going to give you a fact. I have a hat on here, which is the Washington Times, and a UPF hat. No longer the chairman of, Dr. Michael Jenkins, and many of you know, is now the chairman. I've taken on another role called HJ Magnolia Global, which is a big global group of our companies in Japan, Korea, and America. So it's another whole realm of work. But I want to give you, so I don't miss this, and watch the clock. Okay, I can end any time. I did some research here as the Washington Times chairman. How many people have ever read an article from the Washington Times? Oh, extra points? Extra points on the exam? Check this out. We have 915,000 unique visitors in this state. Almost a million. There are 36 congressional districts in your state. That means, and I did the math this afternoon, an average of 25,417 people like you and me in every congressional district in Texas, on average, read the Washington Times at least once a month. That is a phenomenal opportunity. If we were to find a way to touch even 1% of that 915,000, that's 9,000 people. We have about 92 people, 87 people in the room. So one of the things I'm interested in doing is touching that group through strategic marketing and finding ways to invite that group plus all the other spheres of influence we represent. The point I want to leave you with and have you asked you to commit it to prayer is, how do we move Dallas? How do we move Texas? How do we move America? You can't just do it with prayer. It's got to have faith and works. Right? Strategy, structure. Look at this, the incredible, the magnificence of the human body, the way God created us. We need that kind of work. That's what I think Mother Moon's doing. She's bringing that kind of organic, sophisticated strategy, and it's working. Presidents of countries are inviting her to come. Not just her, but this whole culture and movement. Let me show you some examples. Keep going there. Okay. Oh, do I have the clicker? Okay. So now I'm putting my UPF hat on, and I hope this, opening bank. So this is the summit took place in Seoul. We had top dignitaries, the opening banquet, of course, and all kinds of, it was like a 4-day event. We were very happy that Vice President Dick Cheney honored us with his presence and gave a great talk. And Speaker Newt Gingrich and his wife, Calista, who's the current ambassador to the Vatican for the United States, came. Now, this was 2 weeks before President Trump met Kim Jong-un in Hanoi, so it was a very, very sensitive time. This is the dais here. It was a tremendous interfaith gathering. This is Mother Moon and her daughter, the little angels. Archbishop Stallings, many of you know, this is our dear brother Sheikh Mansour from Senegal. And this man here is the Minister of Unification, the Secretary of State, so to speak. The President of Sao Tome on the left had broken his arm, and he had just invited Mrs. Moon over to Sao Tome and Principe, and they had an amazing event of some 40% of the young people of the country came out. And they had just an incredible thing. You could look it up, and I'll trust Mark and others here to get you the more information. Gingrich gave tremendous inspiration, and so did, this was picked up in Newsweek, and he saw the Korean miracle for himself. I'm not going to go into detail there. Cheney, he had gave some advice, I think, which was very well taken to the President of the United States, borrowing from when Ronald Reagan was meeting Gorbachev in Reykjavik when the Cold War was raging. And President Reagan didn't make a deal for the sake of the deal. It was the SDI stuff, how to deal with the nuclear problems. And he didn't. He walked. He went home. And that shifted the dynamic. So Mr. Cheney advised our current president, don't go in to make a deal just to get political points. Don't go make a deal just for the sake of a deal. It's got to be for the sake of the world, not just America first. Everyone's got to benefit. So it was great. It was really timely. And there's so many other presentations that came from different countries. You can see all the heads of state there, Congressman Dan Burton, our founder, Mrs. Moon. I do encourage you, and this is something we can work on together, to make sure that some of these keynote addresses that she's given, I really recommend take a look at them. It's innovative, it's a new paradigm, it's resonating around the world in different cultures, and I think it's absolutely correct. She's spot on. It's a tremendous influence there. So that's the World Summit. She launched the President's Group and the ISCP. Then we had a program on different concurrent sessions of IPP. These are legislators. And the IPD, the Southern Peace Prize, was phenomenal. Here are these two outstanding human beings. They were just amazing. And then we did a special thing with the Washington Times in Sege-Obo, which is our daily newspaper in Seoul. And we focused on the Korean Peninsula. This was a 4-session thing with some leading people. The man on the your far right is Ambassador Christopher Hill, who is the ambassador to Korea, as well as to Kosovo and Iraq. He is a phenomenal diplomat. Stephen Harper, the next one in, is the former Prime Minister of Canada, a couple of legislators from South Korea, and that was a terrific program. And this is my colleague over in, my colleagues in Korea. That's Stephen Harper and Chris Hill. Mr. Hill has been on about 6 of our fact-finding trips. We have a whole network of experts that do this. This is Ambassador Joe Detrani. Ambassador Detrani with Christopher Hill were the team that worked under President Bush 43 on the 6-party talks on the Korean Peninsula. He's a phenomenal diplomat, very, very tuned in. He's called upon every administration, and he's been on a bunch of our fact-finding groups. So this is one of your congressmen, Ted Poe, Judge Poe, who's retired. He's a good friend of the Times. He did a great job. Congressman Dan Burton is the head of IPP internationally with his counterpart from Asia, former Speaker of the House, Jose de Venecia, in the Philippines. So I was with Congressman Burton in Salt Lake and just the other day, and he's just doing great work. So we want to help you reach out to your elected officials, 36 members of Congress, lots of former members, lots of state legislators, mayors, etc. There's so many opportunities there that we can collaborate on. I'm talking about nonpartisan, principle, purpose-driven leadership. I'm not talking about Republican or Democrat or even conservative or liberal. I'm talking about a different type of identity that's higher level, not right-wing or left-wing, but head-wing, which kind of encompasses the essence of both, but doesn't sacrifice the importance of the rule of law, of constitutional government, of our endowed rights from our Creator. So it's a profound thing that I'm sure people will begin to take note of. But this is some of the press that was developed there. So, and then finally, the Summit on Peace Prize. So let me conclude here with, we're just going to finish with this. This movement is building momentum. It's building in its sophistication, in its impact, and it's certainly the support from multi-sector, political, religious, business, etc., etc. And I just implore you, study it more. A great lesson I learned when Dr. Ben Carson used to write an op-ed piece for the Washington Times for almost 3 years, every week. I just love his writing. And then he ran for president, dropped out of that, became the head of HUD. But when Dr. Carson and his wife were traveling the country, every time he spoke about his book, which is called One Nation, you should read it, it's a beautiful book, he would say, in the opening minute, if you take 30 minutes every day to read something new, you'll change your life. Thomas Friedman, New York Times columnist, a profound thinker. I don't agree with him on everything, but a profound thinker, wrote, a very powerful New York Times bestseller last year called Thank You for Being Late. And in that book, Friedman said, is the future develops people that succeed versus people that don't. It's not a question of who you were born from or even necessarily a level of education or wealth. Success is going to be determined because things are changing so quickly by a mindset of being a lifelong learner. We're all going to go through different phases in our life. Being a lifelong learner, being open to learn, open to read, open to take in new content. So I put that Ben Carson, Thomas Friedman thing, that drives me. That's what excites me, to see, wow, things, we really can solve these problems in the world with new wine into new wineskin, centered upon God and Christ. With that, I want to thank you. The role of Ambassadors for Peace is so profound. It's a network that's kind of an elite, heavenly network around the world. And for those of you that are going to be appointed tonight, God bless you for your service, and let's keep working together. Let's make Texas heavenly Texas. Amen. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.